Sometimes the best option for booking onto an Alaska or Hawaiian flight is actually to use a different airline's miles. Today, we have part 2 of booking domestic award flights on Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines, and we'll be focusing in on how and why you might even want to use partner airlines to book. Welcome back to Points for Normal People. I'm Katie, and I believe travel isn't just for the rich. I'm here to share easy-to-follow tips to help you supercharge your travel points so you can pay for entire vacations every year. Last episode, we covered how you can use Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines points to book Alaska and Hawaiian flights. Today, we're going to the next level, which is how and why to use other kinds of points and miles to book onto Alaska and Hawaiian flights. Now, if you need a refresher on how award flights and transfer partners and alliance partners work in general, be sure to go back to the first 2 episodes of Season 3 to catch up there on all the background info you need to have before these specifics will make sense. If you're new to points and this starts to make your head spin, first of all, hi, I'm so glad you're here. My goal is to help you become confident in how you use your credit card points for whatever it is that the travel is that you want to take. Now, Season 3 is more complex, and if you start here with no background info, it's going to be too much. I highly recommend starting with Season 1, Episode 1, and going in order. I wrote out the episodes to build sequentially, so they really make the most sense if you start and you go in order. If you've done all the podcast episodes and you're looking for more information, I recommend you start with my free course, which you can find at learn.katiestraveltricks.com. There's a lot of information that overlaps there, but the course overall is presented from a little bit of a different angle and in a different order. So I think that the podcast and the course help reinforce each other. Season 3, we're walking through different methods of booking domestic flights. I'm going to be honest and say that I'm starting to get worried this information is going to feel repetitive and boring. But I want to stick it out to build a full season of info on domestic award flights, so that I'm sure that I touch on the major US airlines so that everyone's airport is covered. But before we get into it today, first I want to give a correction. Thanks to Carol G for this reminder. I said in the last episode that no major bank program transfers to Alaska. And this is technically true. But there is one points currency that can transfer to Alaska that's not a bank, and that's Bilt Rewards. Bilt is a relatively new program, and it has some ways that you can earn points through paying rent and dining and some other things. It's not really easy or possible to really scale your earnings with Bilt, and there isn't any welcome offer for their credit card that they have. But if you are really trying to turn over every stone to earn Alaska miles, you will want to look at their program. I have an article in the show notes on how you can earn Bilt Rewards, and you can read it there. This week, though, we want to talk about booking Alaska and Hawaiian flights with partner airline loyalty programs. And with that, we have 5 options that we're going to go through. Now, theoretically, you could book certain Alaska flights with any One World airline program, but these 5 are the ones that are accessible to Americans earning credit card points and the ones that represent the best overall value. So these are the ones we'll talk about today. Finnair, Qatar Airways, Singapore KrisFlyer with a bunch of caveats, JetBlue, and American. As I mentioned last episode, Alaska and Hawaiian are in the process of merging, so this information will change over the next year. As of right now, you can't use Finnair, Qatar Airways, and Singapore KrisFlyer to book Hawaiian routes. And as of right now, you can use JetBlue to book onto Hawaiian flights, but not Alaska flights. But we expect these to shift with the full merger completion. Let's actually talk about JetBlue first, since it's the easiest. We'll start easy and then get harder. Now, this JetBlue option is ending on June 30th of 2025. So it's not going to be around for much longer, but I do want to mention it anyway. JetBlue is not part of a major airline alliance, but it does partner directly with a few airlines. One of those airlines is Hawaiian Airlines. It does not partner with Alaska Airlines. Through June 30th of this year, you can use JetBlue TrueBlue points to book onto Hawaiian flights. And for these flights, JetBlue follows an award chart and prices these per segment. So this really only makes sense if you can find a nonstop flight on Hawaiian. Specifically, it's the East Coast routes from New York and Boston. These are the main ones where these might make sense. The pricing is 37,900 points each way for the nonstop routes in economy. Now, this is more than Hawaiian is charging for these flights. Pricing on Hawaiian is 30,000 points each way, and it can be even less if you book via Alaska. But I still want to mention this because if you have a lot of JetBlue points and if you're based on the East Coast and if you want to go to Hawaii and you plan to book before June 30th, 2025, it's worth looking at. But as always, make sure you're checking cash prices too. When I was just double checking my pricing and the research for this episode, I was seeing some New York to Hawaii prices on Hawaiian for as low as $225 each way. Now, interestingly, these were all flights with connections. The pricing was higher if you just did nonstop to Honolulu. But if you booked New York to Honolulu and then a connection to the Big Island or Maui, it was a lot cheaper, sometimes half as much. JetBlue doesn't have cancellation fees on partner awards, so it's a good one to do if you might cancel and you want some flexibility. Again, it mostly makes sense if you have access to JetBlue points, but not Hawaiian or Alaska points. And if you specifically want to book onto Hawaiian, and you're going to do it in the next few months. Now, you can also use American to book onto both Hawaiian and Alaska flights. And this one won't change with the merger. This is going to stay the same. So we talked about this in reverse in a previous episode. How you can use Alaska and Hawaiian miles to book onto American flights. But let's talk about when it makes sense to use American miles on Hawaiian flights specifically. The first thing to know is that while American prices their own flights dynamically, they use an award chart for partner airlines. Now, award charts aren't inherently good or bad, but they can lead to more predictable sweet spots. In this case, I'll be honest, the award chart is baffling me here. So, American's award chart says it charges 22,500 points each way from the continental US to Hawaii on partner airlines. So, normally with American, that rate would be valid for the whole of the United States to Hawaii, no matter if you have a connection or a direct flight. But when I'm actually searching, it was coming up as 35,000 points each way for those Hawaiian Airlines nonstops from New York. And then when I added a connection, it was up to 42,500. So that's almost double what their award chart says it should be. And much more than similar connecting flights would be if you were flying on American Airlines planes. From the West Coast, it was showing as starting at 22,500 for me for those nonstop flights. Now, all of these cost more than booking directly with the Hawaiian and Alaska miles on those Hawaiian flights. But I still wanted to share the option because if you have a lot of American miles, and especially if you really want to leave from Boston and New York on a nonstop flight, it might be worth considering. American doesn't have any of its own nonstop flights from the East Coast all the way to Hawaii. So if you have American miles and you want to book those nonstop routes from Hawaii to New York and Boston, this may be the way to go. American miles can be a little harder to amass, so you might want to stick to using those for true American sweet spots. But sometimes the sweet spot for you is using the miles you have to get to the place that you want to go. You can likewise use American miles to book onto Alaska flights, either within the continental US or over to Hawaii. Generally, within the continental US, these are going to cost 12,500 points each way. Again, this might make sense for you if you don't have Alaska miles and you have a route you really want to book. But before you do that, I'm going to recommend you look at and compare the Avios options. Neither American or JetBlue are the cheapest options for booking Alaska or Hawaiian flights. But the main advantage they have over the next options, which are cheaper, is their free cancellation policies. So if your plans are wishy-washy, using American or JetBlue miles can be a good way to book. These are also good for booking backup options. But if you're pretty sure you're going on the trip, there are some much cheaper options with Avios. I went over these in episode 4 of this season, so you can go back and review there for a full overview. I won't go into nearly as much detail in this episode. But there are a few differences to using Avios for Alaska flights than there were for using them for American flights. And in episode 4, I covered using them specifically for American flights. First, as of now, you can't use these for Hawaiian flights, but after the merger is complete, you should be able to. The main difference with booking Alaska flights with Avios is that the award charts are different. In fact, they are more favorable for booking onto Alaska Airlines flights. The flights are cheaper. As a quick refresher, Avios are a points currency shared by a handful of airlines. It's a little bit more complicated, but there are some big advantages to taking the time to learn this points currency. First of all, they're really easy to earn. Every major bank transfers to at least one of the Avios airlines. Even better, it's fairly common to see transfer bonuses from the banks to the Avios program, which means you can get more points when you move points over. And once you have Avios with one of the Avios airlines, you can move the Avios around to any of the others. And that means you can take advantage of any destination of any of their sweet spots that any of the airlines have. Now, for domestic flights, British Airways used to be the best Avios award chart around, but it no longer is because they raised their pricing a few times over the past few years. In fact, the last major increase was on July 4th, 2024, which was kind of a funny date that they picked to really hit Americans with a devaluation of their points. So British Airways is out for booking domestic US flights. Instead, you're going to be looking at either Qatar Airways or Finnair, depending on your routing. But you can move your Avios around to whatever partner will be cheapest, depending on where you're going. So if you're booking a short, nonstop Alaska Airlines flight under 650 miles, it would be cheapest to use Avios via Qatar Airways. Now, this is the only time using Qatar Airways is cheaper for domestic Alaska flights. Qatar uses a distance-based award chart and charges per segment. For flights within the United States of up to 650 miles, this is going to cost 9,500 Avios. But as soon as you add a connection, it's going to charge per segment. So that's per flight. And so the cost is at least going to double. So if you're flying Alaska Airlines anywhere within the continental US or Canada, and it's longer than 651 miles, you'd want to use Avios through Finnair's award charts instead. Because for flights more than 651 miles, their award chart gives you a cheaper price. That's because Finnair charges just 11,000 Avios for any Alaska flights within the continental US. That includes connecting flights. In fact, I believe it even includes flights to and from Alaska. So if you're based in the Pacific Northwest, where Alaska has a huge number of routes, this is such a good sweet spot to know. Or for other people who fly to the West Coast and want to go to Alaska, it's a great spot for you to know too. Because that's a great price. And again, since we know the banks run transfer bonuses frequently to Avios Airlines, it would be pretty reasonable to expect to pay even 20 to 30% less, because you could plan to transfer during a 20 to 30% transfer bonus. Even Alaska flights to and from Hawaii are a good deal. It's slightly higher than flights within the continental US, but still great at 13,500 points each way. Great pricing. But there are some definite cons to booking via Finnair. The first is that searching and booking for available awards is kind of a pain. You can't really even search for these on Alaska's website because Alaska doesn't seem to consistently release all of this savior-priced awards to partners. And then you can't search on Finnair because they don't offer a way to search US partner awards. So you have to end up searching with a third party and then double checking your work. Personally, I would start my searches for this on Seats.Aero. I know there are other free options and I know it's a little harder to learn at first, but for me personally, this has become my favorite search tool. Because again, you can't search for these directly. So what that means is we need to use sort of an award search logic. Here's the logic in case you missed it before or in case it was confusing. So Alaska releases certain seats to partner airlines. And generally speaking, they release the same award seats to all the different partner airlines that they partner with. Basically, these are seats that Alaska has told all of their partner airlines that they can let their own loyalty members use their own points to book these seats. And then there's a reimbursement between the airlines. So it's always somewhat limited. Because Alaska is going to always prioritize their own program first, they're probably only releasing these seats to partner airlines if the flight isn't full. So even though you can't search directly on Finnair, you could search on another partner airline. Because if Alaska is letting one other partner airline book a flight, they'll probably be giving all the partners that same option. So we're going to use a whole other airline as our litmus test. And in this case, I'd recommend using Qantas. Qantas is also in the One World Alliance, just like Finnair and Alaska. So theoretically, if Alaska is letting Qantas book a flight, it's probably going to let Finnair agents do the same thing. Again, the only reason we have to use Qantas is that we can't search on Finnair, which is the airline we actually want to look for the availability on. So searching Qantas gives us a good approximation of what the availability will be via Finnair. But in the end, we want to book via Finnair because it's cheaper. So finding these is going to take some more elbow grease. Then booking them is going to take some more time too. You can't search for them on the Finnair website, and you can't just log on and book them on the Finnair website. You have to either call in to book or book via chat. We're hearing people say that they're having better luck booking over the phone because it can be hard to even get through with chat. If they fill up their virtual queue of people, they don't let anyone else in. But on the phone, they'll just put you in a hold queue. So it's going to be hold time and a phone call. So it's more effort than booking a flight online. And then the last major drawback is that if you have to change plans, you're going to be charged a €50 fee per person to cancel and get your points back. So that can really add up. These are all the factors to weigh for you when you decide which option to pursue for yourself. Finnair is often the cheapest option, but that doesn't make it the best option. The best option for you is going to vary based on the points you have available to you, how much time you have to search for and book flights, and how important it is to you to keep your options somewhat open to cancellation. And don't forget to keep in mind that you always want to compare cash prices. Don't get sucked into transferring points to Finnair to book a flight and then realize that the cash price was actually pretty low. Booking via a bank travel portal is sometimes the cheapest way to cover flights with points. And contrary to a lot of misinformation that cycles through points communities regularly, it's not a horrible idea. We'll cover that in one of the upcoming episodes. If you want to learn more about these bookings, like booking via Qatar Airways or Finnair, definitely check out the episode I did that dove more into this. And then we also have a blog post on each of these as well. Right now, you can only book Alaska flights with Qatar Airways and Finnair, but I'd expect that after the merger finalizes, you'll be able to book Hawaiian flights as well. Now, the last option for booking Alaska flights is through Singapore KrisFlyer. I'm going to say right up front that I can hardly recommend this, but my desire to give everyone all their potential options is too great to just ignore it. Alaska and Singapore partner directly. So they're in different airline alliances, One World and Star Alliance, but they still partner. And Singapore publishes an award chart for using Singapore KrisFlyer miles if you want to book Alaska Airlines flights. And it seems fairly straightforward, and some of the pricing is pretty good. Some of the flights in their between zones are as cheap as 8,500 points each way. And KrisFlyer miles are pretty easy to earn because all the major banks transfer to them. Except that it's almost impossible to book. So in testing this out, because I wanted to be able to publish a longer article, our team writer Sadie only successfully got through to an agent once who knew how to find and book these awards. She tried a lot of times. So this seems to be a pretty common theme if you look up how to book these awards. A lot of people get connected to a lot of agents who say things like, oh, Singapore doesn't partner with Alaska, or there aren't any flights available. So it isn't an option with guarantees of booking. But if you're feeling ambitious, you could definitely look into it. So I'm going to link an article that another blog published in 2023 that's sort of the most recent detailed article I could find on this. Today felt like a laundry list of options, but I'm going to give a quick overview here. To be honest, none of these are slam dunks. They all have pros and cons. If you want to book Hawaiian and Alaska flights, but you don't have Hawaiian and Alaska miles, you have a few options though. Here's how you could decide. If you really want to book one of the Hawaiian nonstops from the East Coast and it's before June 30th, 2025, you could look at the JetBlue or American Airlines loyalty programs as options to book those. Once the merger completes, I would expect those would be bookable with Finnair and that the pricing via Finnair would be the best option. But before June 30th, you might want to book with JetBlue or American. If you're booking a non-stop Alaska flight that's less than 650 miles, you want to look at Qatar Airways Avios. But for longer flights, if you're booking Alaska flights that are longer than 650 miles, if you're booking connecting flights, then your next option is to look at Finnair Avios. But know that this is going to take more work and it's less flexible, but it can be cheap. If you're feeling especially ambitious and have a non-stop Alaska flight you want to take, You can also look at Singapore KrisFlyer, but expect that almost every agent will have no idea how to book this, so you have to be really patient. I don't actually have any clear action steps today because this information felt pretty specific to specific situations. I'm going to include articles in the show notes in case you want to dive into this info more. But since I don't have action steps, I wanted to say a quick thank you to all of you for your support. On Apple Podcasts, we somehow still have a 5.0 rating and now over 320 reviews. I read every review and appreciate them so much. I think I've said this before, but podcasting feels weird sometimes because I prep and film and put things out in the world, but there isn't really any immediate feedback. So when you take the time to write a review or send me an email or a DM on Instagram or leave a comment on YouTube, it's so encouraging to me. I've also gotten messages from people letting me know that they opened a credit card using one of my affiliate links, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that too. My business model relies almost completely on people like you taking the time to go to my page when they're signing up for a new credit card. I earn a tiny bit from YouTube ads, like $100 a month, and a little bit from the ads on my blog. But the vast majority, and what is able to support me and my team to continue creating new resources, is from affiliate links. And I do this because I honestly don't want to make a cost barrier to people learning this info. I don't want to charge for a premium podcast or charge for my course. And somehow this business model has all worked out. Now, I'm also committed to sharing the best offers, even if they don't earn me a commission, because ultimately I still want you all to get the best deal. So if you find yourself ready to open a new card and wanting to support my business, next time you go to sign up for a credit card, even if you can't find that card on my best offer page, feel free to send me an email and I can let you know if I have an affiliate link for it that wasn't easy to find. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for being with me today, and I can't wait to see you next time where we will continue to unlock these secrets of travel points together.